Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Good morning, everybody. So we begin today by reading from a Transcendental Diary. Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976, by Hari Sai Prabhu. Excuse me. So, therefore, it is our little attempt that to train some boys to become first-class character, samo dhamma titiksha, that is required in the society. Simply all fifth class men. All right. Did you read the part Jagadish and the Gurukul teachers along with Yashodananda Maharaj? Okay.
Didn't move the sun?
No. That's okay. Jagadish and the Gurukul teachers, along with Yashodananda Maharaj and Bhagratji, had a long discussion this morning with Srila Prabhupada about the boys' schedule and some disciplinary matters. Now that the number of boys has expanded and the school is taking positive shape, they are keen to take advantage of Srila Prabhupada's presence to give clear definition to its function. Srila Prabhupada is very concerned that the boys be well looked after, and from his responses it was abundant that their health and welfare should be paramount. Prabhupada went over every item in the boys' day, beginning with their waking in the early morning. All the boys get up by 3:30 to 3:45 a.m., and after bathing, they chant some japa before attending Mangalartik. Then, after arati and tulasi worship, they complete their japa before attending Guru Puja and Srimad Bhagavatam class. He made it clear that in the following morning schedule, the boys should not be unduly taxed. He said that they must get sufficient rest and must not be required to do things beyond their practical ability, according to their age. He thought 3:30 might be too early for them to rise, but he accepted it when he heard that the boys were already accustomed to it and were also getting to bed by 8:15 p.m. Prabhupada was also concerned that the younger boys not be forced to do a long period of chanting japa, it being too difficult for them. Instead, he said, they could be engaged in regular kirtan chanting. He was satisfied, however, with Jagadish's clarification that the older boys between 13 and 15 years, some of whom were initiated, chant 16 rounds, while the younger boys may do only 6 or 8, and the rest of the time study. When Jagadish mentioned that some of the boys were going into the deity room as the deities were being bathed to chant mantras for Brahma Samhita and Sri Ishopanishad with Yashodananda Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada objected. Why? Why deity room? Within the deity room, there is no need of chanting. Who told you this? There is no need within the deity room. He looked questioningly at Pradyumna. You told? No, Pradyumna responded, but then added, sometimes I thought you said for installation or at other times when the deity is being bathed to chant Brahma Samhita prayers. No. Within the deity room there is no business, Prabhupada said, no business. Jagadish told him that in the early morning, when we hear the sounds of the boys chanting, it is coming from the deity room. Oh, Prabhupada responded, they can chant outside, yes. The deity bathing or whatever, dressing, may go on. You can chant not within the deity room. Then you can do outside. Okay. They moved on. So we go, leave it there. All right. Are there any comments or questions about this? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, we should not chant when someone is doing puja in the puja room. For example, the deities are taking bath or something. But for example, normally every day the pujaris, after the Mangalarti, they go in the pujari and they chant the rounds most of them. Is this okay?
Well, according to what Prabhupada said, there is no chanting in the deity room. But you have to consider time, place, and circumstance. Prabhupada gave a lot of instructions in letters and anecdotal instructions. Anecdote means a story. So a story is dealing with a particular time, place, and circumstance, right? So all of these letters, and all these anecdotal instructions, we have to be considered. You have to consider not just the words that were spoken, but the people that were involved, the circumstance, the place, and the time. For example, this is in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, I'm pretty sure this is in Vrindavan, right? This is in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, they worship Radha Shama Sundara. And the Radha Shama Sundara worship, and also Krishna Balaram. And that's not ordinary worship. That's the highest standard of worship. And in the deity room, no, nothing but deities, not personal business. Chanting japa is personal business, right? Chanting Hare Krishna mantra, that's chanting japa. That's personal business. I have to do my rounds, they're my rounds. Right? That's personal. But here we don't worship Sri Sri Shama Sundara. Or Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundara, Jai Shri Shri Vijay Gauranga Dharani Tai Ki Jai. And we don't worship Krishna Balaram. We don't worship Shalagram Shila so far. So it's different. But Prabhupada also is, he's saying what is the highest standard. Like I go in the deity room and I chant my japa in the morning. When I'm going to do some seva, like if I'm going to be in there bathing the deities, for example, or doing the Mangalarti, I go straight into the deity room and chant my japa. But maybe that's not the highest standard, right? So maybe now I will do it differently. But at the same time, it's also the Gaura deities are not so easily offended, right? There's a little more lenience in worshipping the Gaura deities. But at least we should understand what the standard is. This is important, and we should at least understand what is the standard. And not adjust the standard according to our ability, right? But just accept that we don't meet the standard. And understand that. Don't lower the standard. Yeah, so I can't really, authoritatively, but Prabhupada said, no business, nonsense, anything personal in the deity department. That's like being on the altar. So that's, sounds like it wouldn't be the place to chant your rounds. But we're here with Gaura Nitai, Vijay Gauranga, Doya Nitai, Doya Nitai. What does it mean? Merciful, right? Doya Nitai, very merciful. So it's really kind of an individual, relationship that you have with the deities also. There's room, I guess, for that, as per my understanding of Scripture. I can't say anything authoritative about that because I've not read anywhere. And I'm sitting in the asana right now. It's important. I just repeat. But according to what we read in scripture, if it was Radha Krishna deities, there should be no nonsense in the deity department. Personal business, talking about pizza we're going to eat tomorrow, or who's cooking for Sunday feast, or anything. It's like being on the altar. You wouldn't talk anything nonsense on the altar. You wouldn't talk anything on the altar. In the Nectar Devotion, it says that you should not break silence in front of the deities. That's what it says in the Nectar of Devotion. This is Rupa Goswami. We are Rupa Nugas, followers of Rupa Goswami. And he has written this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that Srila Prabhupada, and if you read in the Nectar of Devotion, it says that I have been compelled to do this by my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada says that. He says, I am compelled to do this by my spiritual master. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he forced his disciple, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to do all these things by giving his instructions. And he was compelled to write Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, by Nectar of Devotion, which is a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He wrote it, I think, in 1969. It's very important. This is a book that's very important. And if you read this book, you can learn what to do, yama niyama, right? What we do and what we do not do. And we don't break silence in front of the deities. God is on the altar. But we don't have that realization, but that's okay, At least we should understand. It's Krishna who's on the altar. We're not supposed to be so, taking it so lightly. We're very lucky to be here in the temple, to be having darshan of Krishna. The Christians all over the world, they don't know what God looks like. They don't know. But they know he has a form, but they kind of gloss over that one. They don't know and the Muslims, they don't believe God has a form. So we're pretty lucky. All right. I hope I'm not upset with you. I hope you didn't think that or something. Okay, cool. I just get a little excited sometimes about these things, It's kind of exciting.
I was a little confused about what you read. That's why I asked again.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you very much. All right. Yes, sir.
2 weeks back, I was working in a company. So my colleague was Muslim.
Yes, sir.
So I told her God has a form or something. He told her, no, my God does not have any form.
Mm-hmm.
If your God does not have, then if your father does not have a form, then where will you come from? After a little bit, 5 minutes silence, then we move.
Yeah, it's very difficult, even for Christians. My mother's a Christian. She has a very hard time with what I'm doing. My brother-in-law, my sister's a devotee. Her children are devotees. I mean, no, you know how that can be, right? She did a pretty good job. Her oldest son is very hardcore. He changed his legal name to his initiated name. He has, anyway, so he's pretty hardcore. The other children are less enthusiastic, Anyway, but the point I wanted to make about this is that her husband, who supported the family for 20 years, right? He honored prasadam. That's all he ate was prasadam. Eventually she became a devotee. They weren't like that in the beginning, but it happened. And now he eats his prasadam. She bought Srimad Bhagavatam. There's only one income in that household. That means he paid for it. Of course, she was doing some service, anyway, but yeah, he paid all the bills and supported the temple, which was a house they lived in, and he has a hard time with the form of the Lord. Die Murti, kann das nicht verstanden, wegen seiner Hintergrund mit Catholicism. Es sagt in der Bibel, dass man sollte kein Bild verehren, oder? Es sagt das. Idols, right? Graven image. Es sagt graven image. Irgendwie, yeah, so, but, and that, why is that, I have not read anywhere in scripture why that is, but I speculated. And I don't want to share that with you because we're talking on the Bhagavatam. Right? Okay. Right. So today we are reading from the Bhakti Vedanta purports on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, the creative impetus, chapter number 5, Lord Rishabhdev's teachings, verse number 14. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Karmasayang Hridaya Granti Bhaddham. Karmasayang Hridaya Granti Bandham. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Anena yogena yatopadesang. Anena yogena yatopadesang. Samyag vyapohyo parameta yogat. Samyag vyapohyo parameta yogat. Karmasayang hridaya granti bandham. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Anena yogena yatopadesang. Samyag vyapohyo parameta yogat. Devotees? Karmasayang hridaya granti bandham. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Anena yogena yatopadesang. Samyag vyapohyo parameta yogat. Please chant. Karmasayang hridaya granti bandham. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Anena yogena yatopadesam. Samyag vyapohyo parameta yogat. Karmasayang hridaya granti bandham. Avidyaya saditam apramataha. Anena yogena yatopadesam samyak vyapohyo parameta yogat. You want to try to chant? Okay. Okay. That's cool. Hare Krishna. Vini Madhava Prabhu?
Karmashayam Hrudaya Granthi Bandham.
Karmasayam hridaya granthi bandham
Avidyaya Saditam Apramattaha.
avidyaya saditam apramataha
Anena Yogena Yatopadesham.
anena yogena yatopadesam samyak vyopohyo parameta yogat. Do you want to try to chant?
I'll need to go a little bit closer because I don't have my glasses.
All right. Moritz?
Karmashayam hridaya granthi bandham
Karmasayam hridaya granthi bandham
avidyaya saditam apramata
avidyaya saditam apramataha anena yogena yatopadesam samyak vyapohyo parameta yogat. Would you like to try to chant? Karmasayam hridaya granthi bandham avidyaya saditam apramataha anena yogena yatopadesam samyak vyapohyo parameta yogat. Karmasayam hridaya granthi bandham avidyaya saditam apramataha anena yogena yatopadesam samyak vyapohyo parameta yogat. Karmasayam hridaya granthi bandham avidyaya saditam apramataha anena yogena yatopadesam samyak vyapohyo parameta yogat. Karma asayam, the desire for fruitive activities. Hridaya granthi, the knot in the heart. Bandham, bondage. Avidyaya, because of ignorance. Asaditam, brought about. Apramataha, not being covered by ignorance or illusion. Very careful. Anena, by this. Yogena, practice of yoga. Yata upadesham, as advised. Samyak, completely. Vyapohya, becoming free from. Uparameta, one should desist. yogat,
yogat,
from the practice of yoga,
from the practice of yoga,
the means of liberation.
the means of liberation.
Translation. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. Purport. The process of liberation is Brahma Jigyasa, the search for the absolute truth. Generally, Brahma Jigyasa is called Neti Neti, the process by which one analyzes existence to search out the absolute truth. This method continues as long as one is not situated in his spiritual life or her spiritual life. Spiritual life is Brahma Bhuta, the self-realized state. In the words of Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, verse 54, Brahma Bhuta prasanatma na sochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhakting labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. The idea is to enter into the para bhakti, the transcendental devotional service of the Lord. To attain this, one must analyze one's existence. But when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. By simply engaging in devotional service undeviatingly, one will always remain in the liberated condition. Mang chayovya bicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatijaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, verse 26. The unflinching execution of devotional service is in itself Brahma Bhuta. Another important feature in this connection is Anena Yogena Yatopadesam. The instructions received from the spiritual master must be followed immediately. One should not deviate from or surpass the instructions of the spiritual master. One should not be simply intent on consulting books, but should simultaneously execute the spiritual master's order, Yatopadesham. The mystic power should be achieved to enable one to give up the material conception. But when one actually engages in devotional service, one does not need to practice the mystic yoga system. The point is that one can give up the practice of yoga, but devotional service cannot be given up. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 7, verse 10. Atmaramascha munayo nirgrantha apya urukrame kurvanti ahaitu king bhaktim itam bhuta guno harihi. Even those who are liberated, Atmarama, must always engage in devotional service. One may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized. But at no stage can one give up devotional service. All other activities for self-realization, including yoga and philosophical speculation, may be given up, but devotional service must be retained at all times. Om Angyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayang Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swaparantikam. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. All right. So this verse, rather this commentary, right. From the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity. So the desire for fruitive activity is coming out of ignorance. Let's think about that a little bit. What is fruitive activity? What is that consciousness? The consciousness of fruitive activity is aham, mama, mameti. I, me, and mine. And or my extended self. Because I'm also living and enjoying through extensions of my body. Like relatives, friends, my car, my house, so much other paraphernalia. This fruitive activity, we have to understand that fruitive activity leads only to more fruitive activity. It's not a solution. It's not a losum. It's kein losum. It doesn't have any end. We engage in fruitive activity because we want to enjoy the senses. But there is no satisfaction of the material senses. They cannot be satisfied. They are always hungry for more. Always. But we have information about another process, the process of devotional service. And that's what also is talked about in the purport here. The process of devotional service is another process that involves activity. The only difference between the process of fruitive activity, right, which are endeavors carried out to bring satisfaction, Sinnebefriedigung, right? Satisfaction to the senses or the extended senses. That is what that means. It's activity. And the other activity, right, is devotional service. It is also activity with the aim of satisfying not the personal senses, but the senses of God, Krishna. The only difference between these two activities is consciousness. It is only a question of consciousness. Consciousness is the determining factor that establishes, am I engaged in fruitive activity or am I engaged in devotional service? So we really need to affect our consciousness. Consciousness needs to be affected. Shri Shri Vijay Gauranga Dayanditai Ki Jai. And Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that we work mostly with our mind and intelligence. I think I've said this before, but I'm going to repeat it. It's a very important point. The mind, right? Thinking, feeling, and willing. And the working senses are carrying out the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind. So with the mind, we can decide to engage in serving our senses. We can also entertain thoughts that are in the mode of ignorance, like conflict and drama and manipulation, competition, trying to control. We can act out our desires to control other people or situations. But the mind engaged in Krishna consciousness is concerned only with serving Krishna. How can I make better service? How can I improve my sadhana? And the other thing to remember here is actually that in the process of devotional service, just like in the process of fruitive activity, there is an object. In the process of fruitive activity, the object of the service or the action is the person is going to enjoy. The object is the person who will enjoy. And the object in devotional service is the object of service. So we should also have in mind always the object of service. So devotional service is also a privilege. Because I was reading today in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when the Lord finally becomes satisfied with your devotional service, then you are allowed to enter into devotional service. You're allowed to enter into this consciousness of Krishna consciousness. Because we cannot make demands on God. We cannot demand Him to come into our heart and show yourself to me. Because He's not a servant. He's the served. And we are the servant. So we should always have in our mind a meditation. Right? A Krishna conscious meditation. And though we may not keep it with us all the time, just like in the morning when we are chanting our rounds, we're not able to always hear every syllable of the mantra. Sometimes the mind is going here and going there, the mind is wandering. But we know when we're chanting, we know what is the object of our meditation. It's the holy name. Nothing has to be imagined. God has a name. Like Rupa Vilas has a name. Like you have a name. We all have a name. When I call that name of that person, I'm thinking about them. So when you call the name of Krishna, right, you should be calling His name. Right? That's how you focus on the holy name. Hearing and chanting. And when you're not chanting your rounds, when you're not in Mangalartik, when you're not in Srimad Bhagavatam, you should also have a meditation on the holy name or on the Bhagavatam verse that you read. But your mind should always be engaged. Because the mind is engaged in thinking, feeling, and willing. These subtle activities push you forward into the modes of nature or out of the modes of nature. They push you down into the mode of ignorance with conflict and drama. They push you into the mode of passion with contemplation of what you're going to desire to enjoy. You know? They push you into the mode of goodness when you have these, mode of goodness thoughts, altruistic thoughts. or they can push you into the transcendental mode when you meditate on the transcendental person or the representative of the transcendental person. That's how Krishna consciousness works. That's how it works. The body is a machine. We are situated in this body made of the material energy. And the mind is not who we are. We are not the mind. We are not the intelligence. We are the soul. We are eternal. And we engage the mind in moving this vehicle forward. So it's very important to watch your mind, to always think, how can I improve my service? If you're not sure what you should be meditating on, how can I be a better temple commander? How can I be a better book distributor? How can I lead better kirtans? How can I do this better? Not so that I will be recognized for my service, but so that I will be seen by the Lord. He will see, oh look, here's my devotee who's trying to do more for me. And then he will help us. It's so important, this principle of humility is very important, because humility, it implies that you understand you're not perfect. You can improve. And if you are humble, Krishna will see that, oh, you're humble. It means you're ready for some help. You're honest as well. We have to be honest. It's so important to be honest. Like I was saying earlier, right? Don't lower the standard so that you feel comfortable. Accept that you're not meeting the standard. Don't think in your mind it's normal that people don't pay attention to their rounds. Don't think like that. That's not normal. We are living in an abnormal condition of existence. This is not normal. What's normal is that you hear the name nicely and you're becoming attracted to it. That's normal. Because that means you're not making aparad. You're not making offenses. So you're able to hear. Krishna says, oh, let him hear nicely. That's what normal is. So don't lower the standard to fit your own ability. Accept that you are not meeting the standard because you have a low ability. And then you become qualified to receive help from Krishna. Helps also if you're praying, how can I get better? So try to do that. Apply this, what is being said in this verse, how it's being further elaborated upon. And always try to keep your mind engaged in focusing on the holy name and being attentive to the instructions of the spiritual master. What does it say here? The instructions of the spiritual master had to be carried out immediately. Immediately, without hesitation. You can't say, well, wait, I want to, can I take a break? Pause and think about this a little bit? No. Because if you have unflinching faith in the instructions of the spiritual master, there is nothing to think about except how you will execute the order. And when you do that, then you enter into this mood of devotional service, simply following instructions. And that's kind of where we want to be. We want to enter into the mood of devotional service, simply following instructions. But it's very difficult because we're so used to being the one who's giving instructions. I'm going to plan my life. I'm going to make a plan. I will go here and then I will go there. I will make an arrangement so that I can have a result. That's planning. That's independence. Only if you're given the instruction. Then it becomes very simple. Because you don't have to worry about success or failure. If we make our own plan, we become attached to the success and we get hurt when we are failing. Or we become elated when we are successful. And both of these are related to honor and dishonor of the body. How other people see us. That's material activity. But to move beyond that, you have to follow instruction. And then you're not attached to the result. You become free from the karma, free from the result, free from the anxiety. It doesn't matter anymore. I was simply told to do this and that's why I'm doing it. But you should do it very carefully. Execute your plan very carefully. Right? Because you're doing your plan for the personality of Godhead. Even though that plan is being given to you, the instruction is being given to you through the representative of the Lord, of Krishna. If you're asked to mop the floor, that is coming, evam parampara praptam, it's coming down from Krishna. Through the representative, the temple commander, how to mop the floor, you should think about how to do it nicely. Everything, small or big. How to make a big temple. How to, anything, any activity. You should think very nicely how to make this work. How can I do this nicely? Yes, sir?
So if I struggle at the beginning with the mantra, then it's better to do less rounds but better, and then step by step getting better.
That's actually a question you have to ask your bhakta leader, because he's the one that can say whether or not you should, this chanting of 16 rounds a day, that's kind of standard. So don't chant 19. Chant 16 good instead of 21 not as good. But the thing about chanting Hare Krishna, it only improves with practice. In fact, in the beginning it may take you 3 or 4 hours to chant 16 rounds, just because you're spacing out or you just don't have the practice. It's difficult. But with some practice of chanting, you can get it to just 2 hours. Standard. 2 hours chanting. And the more, if you chant your rounds and they're 5% okay or 20% okay, instead of chanting 4, better to chant 16. Right? And it will improve. 1 week, 1.5 weeks maybe. It's not a very long time. It will improve. It will improve, but you have to apply the process. It will work. It works. People get results. It works. But you do have to apply it. It's difficult to apply. It's very difficult. Because we are fighting against a nature that we've cultivated for many, many births. Thousands of years. Lifetimes. Thousands of lifetimes. We have this nature where we cultivate, we are competing with Krishna. Unknowingly. Subconsciously. No, but I'm the controller. Controller, God, Krishna, it means Ishvara. Controller. It means controller. One who is controlling. But we think that we're practicing this art of controlling for so long. We have to break that habit. So it will be difficult. But it's not impossible. This Heilige Mittel, right? This medicine is Srimad Bhagavatam. I was reading today and it says it in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni, he's having a conversation with Vyasadeva. And Prabhupada saying in the purport that this Srimad Bhagavatam, it's containing the medicine that we can break that habit of being the controller. But you have to take the medicine. And if you have any experience with illness, for example, you have a lot of pain and you want to take something to numb the pain. If you purchase the pain number and put it on your shelf, the pain will not go away. You consume it. You have to consume Srimad Bhagavatam for the pain, the fever, a material desire to go down. Srimad Bhagavatam must be consumed. You have to consume it. You can purchase it and put it on your shelf and it will look very pretty. But it will not make the pain go away if it stays on your shelf and you don't read it. You have to read it. Don't give up on reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's such a subtle science that we don't understand how it works, so we don't take it so seriously. But if we just use a little bit of objectivity and we think about this a little bit, Prabhupada wrote so many books right? Because his guru told him to. So that was not for nothing. It wasn't for his purification. But he would say that maybe, But we should understand that. It was for our purification. We have to read it. You have to read it. Or you can stay here in the temple for another 150,000 lifetimes, whatever it takes. However long it takes. Shringvata Svakata Krishna. Sanatana Goswami is glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami. Anyway. So for the fever to go down, you have to take the medicine. And it will go down slowly. Like any other disease you have. You don't get cured from the flu overnight. You have to take something for 10 days. Yes, sir?
I just want to mention that Prabhu said that, according to his question, that first quantity, and by quantity you will get the quality.
Right. Yeah.
The more you practice, the better you can do it.
Yes, it's true.
So, and I mean, for in the beginning, maybe if someone's completely new in the temple, okay, chant as much as you can, but keep the same amount of rounds. Okay, you're not able to chant 8 rounds, okay, then keep this 8 rounds, but for every day. Not one day 8, next day 6, another day 64. So, and then you can improve slowly, more and more. So steadiness, this is the secret. And try after a couple of times. I mean, we say like, okay, after 2 months, everybody should reach the 16 rounds. This should be the process. So don't worry, just continue as Prabhu said, and keep the same amount of rounds and try to improve, to chant more.
Yeah. So that's something you'd want to personally work out with the gentleman, Rupa Vilas Prabhu, about how many rounds you're chanting. I'm not an authority to answer on that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. If I may ask a question, because I have come later, I was in the kitchen, if you know.
Of course.
Okay, so we're speaking every time about Srimad Bhagavatam. I told you already that has helped me greatly. Reading now as much as possible.
What are you reading right now in the Srimad Bhagavatam?
That is not funny.
I'm reading the first canto.
No.
I'm reading the first canto.
No.
I am. 7th chapter.
Certainly, to read again the first and the second canto would be very nice, because these 2 first cantos.
Or the prologue is very nice.
At first I finish the whole, then I come back if Krishna gives me time. My question is that Srimad Bhagavatam, the more we are going subtle into the essence, into the purity of Srimad Bhagavatam. But we are not pure. So my question is, what is the first, what is the second? You see, to reach Srimad Bhagavatam, we should be somehow prepared, yes? But we are set with Bhagavad Gita even as well too. It's absolutely pure scripture. Yes? What is the first? Or if you say parallel lines, if it really works.
All right. Yes, sir.
Explain the question once again. I couldn't understand.
I think what she's asking is, correct me if I'm wrong, that should we read Srimad Bhagavatam or should we read Bhagavad Gita? It's sort of like this, it sounds like you're maybe a little bit of overwhelming how many books there are to read and which one we should read first.
No, it's not, yes, because...
Which one we should read first?
Because Srimad Bhagavatam is a very pure scripture. When I'm reading, I feel my impurity more and more. More and more. Not that I don't understand. It is also summary. It is given to us in a simple form. Very simple form. But nevertheless, even Bhagavad Gita is also. So that's what my question is. Shall we first somehow go through some tapasya, through some austerities, to purify ourselves and then to...
No, that's not our philosophy. The process of reading Srimad Bhagavatam is austerity and it is purifying. The process of reading Bhagavad Gita is austerity and it's purifying. The process of reading any of Srila Prabhupada's purports is austerity and it's purifying. If you cannot read Srimad Bhagavatam, for whatever reason, read something every day that Prabhupada wrote. Because why? Because then you will be associating with the words of the pure devotee, the founder Acharya. And through that association, you will be able to purify your heart. You'll be able to rise to the mode of goodness and pure goodness by that association. That's why. But I'm only going to repeat, this is a literary incarnation of Krishna. Right? What does that mean? So this is Krishna in book form. So when you look at the deity, right? And somebody asks you, did you take darshan? You said, yeah, I already. Or somebody asks you, do you want to go look at the deity? And do you say, no, I already looked at him? I looked at him twice. From head to toe. No, you don't say that. So when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, you are looking at Krishna. You are looking at Krishna. When you read first canto, you're looking at his feet. That's what it says. First canto, chapter 3, I'm not sure which verse it is, but it's a literary incarnation. You don't just read it and say, I read it. It means you don't want to see Krishna anymore? What did you do that you don't want to see him anymore? You keep reading. But anyway, read something. Because you have that association, you need that. All right. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to mention and also ask that I heard that, especially someone who's not read Bhagavad Gita from the beginning to the end, first of all, you should do that, and then after you can start the Bhagavatam.
Where is it written?
It's not written, I just heard it by quite a few singers what he said. This is like a approach that is often done because the Bhagavad Gita is for many people easier to understand than Srimad Bhagavatam. Or it's much more intense to read the Bhagavatam and it's more heavy than the Bhagavad Gita in some parts of it.
I mean, I'm looking at this right here, and what is cited is the Bhagavad Gita twice. And this is reading from the 5th canto, 5th chapter. I don't know where it's written that you cannot read Srimad Bhagavatam until you read Bhagavad Gita. But if people are recommending it, that's fine. I mean, I know that there's a whole, this is beginning and this is graduate and postgraduate. 1 second, please. Right? I've heard this also. But, okay, if people feel more comfortable reading Bhagavad Gita first, fine. But read something. Read these books. Read these books.
Yeah, right, that's how you said it. I heard the Bhagavad Gita is like the ABC, the Srimad Bhagavatam is like the graduate study, and the Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrita is like the postgraduate. No, it's the other way. It means postgraduate before or more advanced.
No, that's how it is. Postgraduate means after.
Right.
But how do you know if you're a graduate or postgraduate? Do you know?
Well, you can ask someone.
And how will they know?
If you accept the Guru, you can know.
That's right. You have to accept a spiritual master. They will be able to tell you. They have to have that qualification to understand the psychophysical nature of somebody. But everybody should read something. Our whole movement is really, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, right? So always chanting Harinam, right? This is very important, essence, right? We bring people to Krishna consciousness through these books. And by reading these Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like chanting Hare Krishna. It's written there. In the Bhagavatam it says that. There's no difference. Because this is a literary incarnation. And the holy name is also incarnation. The name form, sound, vibration. So if this is your excuse, then read Bhagavad Gita every day. Every day. Read Bhagavad Gita every day. Purports, Bhaktivedanta purports. I'm not going to stop talking about that until it appears that people are doing it. But it doesn't appear that way. So I'm still talking about it, because obviously, repetition is the mother of learning. I'm going to keep repeating it. You can tell when someone's reading because they look differently, they act differently, they speak differently because they're associating not with their mind, not manasasanga. They're associating with Bhagavat Sabda, Bhagavan Sangha, with Krishna in form of words. Krishna's spoken conversation, you're associating with him when you read Bhagavad Gita. You're associating with his pure devotee when you read the purports. You look differently, you speak differently, you act differently. You are different. You change. This hearing, we clean the heart with our ears, not with our hands. With our ears. Hearing. Sabda Brahma, right? Is that how it is? Sabda, right? Hearing. We have to hear. Hear. Please. You will change. I noticed these two gentlemen were reading yesterday for an hour. I could tell, looking on their face, they look different. I'm not making that up. It's true what happened. I saw that they were different. You look differently in your face. You can understand a person by looking at their face. So much is there. It's really hard to hide much. But it will work if you apply it. Something else was a question now? You had one also? Did you want to have one last question? No? No. Everybody's good.
Basically, it's what you hear, what you see, and what you read that makes your character like that also.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to repeat that. It's for this camera, for nothing else, right? What you hear, what you see, what you read, that forms your character. And if you want to have saintly character, read from the saints what they have written. See the form of the Lord. Eat the prasadam. Hear Krishna Katha, not Gramya Katha. People talking about each other because they don't read Srimad Bhagavatam. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, you will talk about Srimad Bhagavatam. What did you read today? Because you will want to know what other people read today, because you read something. And you want to tell what you read. What is your meditation today? What did you read? So read something. Find 5 minutes to read something. Or there will be consequences. If you neglect the orders of the institutional acharya, there will definitely be consequences. No question. No question. No question. For everybody, no matter who you are, big and small. We are all under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Yes, ma'am?
What character is it?
What character?
This character is connected with Lord Chaitanya.
Because Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Right? And we can enter into this, Sudasattva state when he allows it, right? But we have to first rise to the mode of goodness. It's preliminary. Preliminary. You have to do this. It's preliminary. It's prerequisite. It's prerequisite. I mean, you're all wonderful people and everything, right? But I got to say something. It's important. I'm on this seat. I have to say this. I have to do it. Otherwise, I'm neglecting my service also. I'm in neglect in my service. Also, if I don't say anything, if I don't say the truth, then what is the point of me speaking anything at all? To make you all feel good? To make me feel good? We're not here to feel good, except by performing devotional service. Yes, sir.
I also think I was reading that basically like you were mentioning that I don't know, like when you look at the deity first, you look at the feet and then
yes, sir.
From there you go on, like at the same way in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto is like the feet of Krishna, and then it said that you shouldn't start reading the 10th canto, which is the most intimate leelas, before reading all the cantos before that.
Yes, that's written.
Yeah.
You should read from the beginning and go forward. In fact, I've even read it where it says, don't move beyond the 3rd canto or 2nd canto until you're free from sex desire.
Srila Prabhupada, I think 1 month back I read that Srila Prabhupada mentioned that read Srimad Bhagavatam in a way. If I want to write something, I will start with 10th canto only. So read from first canto to go. Don't go to the direct face of Krishna.
Right, it's rude. Start with the feet. There are so many nectarian jewels in the purports, the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first and second canto. So many nectarian jewels. If you apply that, then you will have so much realization. If you just look, anyway, I mean, we can glorify the Bhagavatam, and it's getting late, but not that late. If you just look at the first canto, in the first chapter, right? In the first verse, in the first paragraph, it's all about substantiating that Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's where the Bhagavatam begins. It's substantiating. It means it's proving this evidence, this acharya, that acharya, over and over for a whole paragraph. You read it and you'll see that. And the second paragraph begins with the sentence, and he is the cause of all causes. This is really heavy. And I agree, it is heavy. It is graduate level. Because if he's the cause of all causes, then when I become angry because somebody I feel is not respecting me enough or something, right? Then that shows that I have envy in my heart. And I cannot appreciate Bhagavatam unless there's no more envy. Nir matsaranam satam. In truthfulness. Only those who are free from envy and they are truthful can really appreciate and read Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, it's like you chant Hare Krishna, but you have to hear it. You read Srimad Bhagavatam, you have to be free from these things. And it works. Just don't worry, don't be discouraged. We're doing the hardest thing there is to do. It's the only thing worth doing, and it happens to be the most difficult. Just don't give up. Even if it's hard to read sometimes, don't give up. Don't think, well, I'm a failure, I got to leave the temple because I don't read Jai Ram is saying, you know. Don't do that. See what you have and try to improve it. This system works. It will work for you. It will work. It might take time, but it will work. You will get that result. And try to stay sincere. Really, that's the only qualification. Have to be sincere. Then Krishna will drag you back by your sincerity. He will. Whatever is there between you and him, it will all eventually go away. And you'll never forget this Krishna consciousness, no matter how long you spend trying to enjoy. Okay. Yes, ma'am, you had one more question or comment? It's okay? All right, thank you very much. Gauradesh Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.